Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank all of the panelists for being here. Prescription drug supply chain is not competitive. I think that is very clear based on not just on today's testimony, but in prior hearings. And one of the reasons is vertical integration. So, Professor Sood, you were asked by my colleague just now, what things would you do? Can you just explain why we shouldn't try to break up the vertical situation? The vertical integration situation. We do have a bill that would require the divestiture of PBMs owning pharmacies. So why wouldn't that be a structural change that we should be contemplating?
So I think we can contemplate that change, but I'm not sure if that change is required or how disruptive that change would be. I would encourage, DOJ and FTC to look at antitrust issues related to vertical integration and try to address them. And if that can address these issues, then we don't need to take the more heavy-handed approach, which would be forcing PBMs to divest pharmacies, et cetera. So I'm not saying I'm not just fully sold on that right now, but I recognize that there are antitrust issues and DOJ and FTC should address them.
Well, we're not expecting too much along these lines from either entity, by the way, because the FTC had opened some, I think, investigation along the lines that you suggest. And there are some markets that just are not given to competition. And I would say this is one of them. And I'm not blaming PBMs for over the drug companies. This is not a matter of whose fault it is, but there are some structural kinds of changes. And I would say that a vertically integrated entity, you just immediately have created a conflict situation. And so one of the ways that antitrust comes in is by requiring divestiture. And having practice in this space as an antitrust lawyer, I think that there's some markets, as I say, that are not given to the kind of reforms that you're talking about. So we can have all the price transparency you want, but if you don't have much power, so what? So even if the three largest PBMs control 80% plus, even if they if there's transparency in pricing, if there's a lack of power on the part of the entities that they are working with, really the question becomes to me, so what? Now, I am also at a loss as to why we permit spread pricing. So, Ms. Faust, yours is a pass-through PBN. Why shouldn't we require all PBNs to be passed through and not engage in the kind of spread pricing that certain entities, such as I would say the Iowa AGs, said that the spread pricing enable PBNs to retain millions and millions in probably undue profits. So what do you say about eliminating spread pricing? There are some states that have done that, including Hawaii.
We support transparency, and that includes transparency to what pharmacies are being paid, which is why our model aligns with clients paying what pharmacies are paid and no spread or capture in the middle. That supports both pharmacies and the plans, which should really be the gold standard to support patient care.
Professor Sood?
I agree that I think, I would support eliminating spread pricing. I don't see how it serves patients.
Dr. Kircher, you have real life experience in your cancer patients, and cancer treatments I understand, I know from my own experience, very complicated, and you have to, the medications and the impacts of medications. So you have had patients who have literally been at death's door because you're not able to get the PBMs to move fast enough, and they do not have the expertise to decide which medication is the most efficacious. So what is the kind of reform that we need to do with prior approval by PBMs?
Yeah, and I think a good point has been made by a lot of people in this committee of that it's probably not just the PBMs. I think there's every line in the chain coming from the manufacturers, the payer, payer solutions as well, as we saw with the Inflation Act and insulin. But I mean, I think we need to. I got lost in the question. What was the question again?
Prior approval. What can we do to reform
approvals.
prior approval?
No, I think these drugs are so expensive that we get it, that you need prior approval. We just need them resolved quickly and effortlessly. I think that's the main thing that we're asking. Not that they don't exist, but that we can resolve them quickly.
I think that is a hard road to go, considering PBMs don't really have the expertise, from my understanding, of making these determinations quickly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator.